there is no pranic activity without the governance of Kundalini. As I said earlier, even if Kundalini, technically speaking, is in a state of slumber, because all pranic currents, all pranic movements are orchestrated and governed by Kundalini. Why? Because Kundalini here exemplifies consciousness. Kundalini here is prana, the primordial prana.
So, a very quick context, I have increased pranic activity, as probably visible. And I wonder when Kundalini awakens, in what relationship she is to pranic activity. Of course, Shakti, as you've shared, ruling over pranic activity would then be very close. Is it a sense of Kundalini then entering into pranic channels, or is it a parallel process? Here my understanding stops.
Okay, so let's clarify this so that this is not left to this erroneous understanding of viewing Pranotthana as heightened pranic activity and a Kundalini process. So we could speak about it as Kundalini process per se, which precedes with the phase of heightened pranic activity. So in a way, heightened pranic activity is beneficial before Kundalini awakening for many reasons, some of which we have covered already in Vienna, where you were present. And one of the main reasons is, well, actually no, I beg your pardon, I think that was in the online Q&A, some kind of maybe mixing these two events. But never mind.
I think I attended the online one.
Okay, so then you would remember when distinction was drawn between what is Pranotthana and what is Kundalini proper. So in any case, there is no pranic activity without the governance of Kundalini. As I said earlier, even if Kundalini, technically speaking, is in a state of slumber, because all pranic currents, all pranic movements are orchestrated and governed by Kundalini. Why? Because Kundalini here exemplifies consciousness. Kundalini here is prana, the primordial prana. When we spoke about the three aspects of Kundalini, Kundalini as Para-Kundalini, Kundalini as Chit Kundalini, and Kundalini as Prana Kundalini. So all this is Prana Kundalini, all these activities, all this world of forms and phenomena is a result, an outcome, and a manifestation of consciousness in its active state as prana. Prana is sound. Prana is sound. Prana is that what is here linked to that term pranav, primordial vibration. Pranav, else known as the sacred sound Om. So this pranav as a symbol, and in Sanskrit, the way it's transliterated, not transliterated, let me rephrase myself, because you cannot transliterate the pranav. It can only be spelled in Sanskrit. If you want to spell that in any other language, you will have to go and simply decode that. And then you will go bindu as a dot, right? Then the shape that will correspond now to all that, what gives rise to consciousness with all the corresponding parts that gives the manifested world its appearance in a state, at this stage, of a seed-like. You see? Seed contains the entire tree. it's minute, tiny, in a bindu. In many texts in Indian spirituality, it is repeatedly used. Either banyan seed or sesame seed is used as an example here. So that pranav is, essentially speaking, sound. It's a primordial sound. So that primordial sound, cascading, manifests itself through various other pranic currents. So therefore, a proper understanding, even in Wikipedia page today, you can check that and read it for yourself, that Om contains all sounds. Om contains all mantras. Pranav contains all mantras. It's, in other words, before the matrix of all the syllable which comprise all the mantras, all the bija mantras, it's all contained already in the sound of the pranav. So that primordial sound, you see, is the sound of Kundalini. That's para-Kundalini. And the para-Kundalini expresses itself as Chit Kundalini, and that point of juncture where it collapses and immediately cascades as creation. And to carry that creation through, it takes the form of Prana Kundalini. And when it takes the form of Prana Kundalini, everything therefore is Prana Kundalini, made of Prana Kundalini. So, and the beauty of it also is that this is palpably experienced by anyone who goes through that awakening firsthand, because it's even somatically experienced. Perhaps we will talk tomorrow as part of our discourse about some of these manifestations of how it can be experienced at a somatic level even. So it's not just like some kind of phantasmagoric, imaginary experiences or psychic experiences. No, it is experienced somatically. So all the pranic heightened activity, when Kundalini awakens, it's simply taken on the next level. As simple as that. It is taken on the level where we could speak of as incomparably more intense. But as I said earlier, the beauty of the heightened pranic activity and why we give our work the legitimacy and invite people to experience this for themselves is because that prepares one for a potential, possible, true Kundalini awakening. And those who have not gone through this and had instead Kundalini awakening somehow, one way or another, which is very, very rare, because at some point we would have to really sit down and talk about this properly. Ideally in the setting of the conference, in the setting of the symposium, on a panel with those who are worth their salt. Because I would suggest for every 100,000 people who claim Kundalini awakening, maybe 100 truly went through full Kundalini process. In others, it's a display of heightened pranic activity. But because we live in the age where, well, a sheer possibility of communication and the availability of information, we tend to jump into conclusions very, very quickly. But the test is simple, as you remember in that online gathering, and the test was very simple. Pranotthana, as a heightened pranic activity, doesn't change consciousness of an individual. And Kundalini does irreversibly. That's the main difference. So, but other than that, it's all under the all subordinate to Kundalini as the main move and shake of all the other pranic currents.
It clarifies it's an extension rather than a
exactly
something else.
Exactly. No, it's in a way we speak of them as two distinctive processes because they are. But really, as I said from get-going, if we view this under the umbrella of the Kundalini process as a grand process, it's a preparatory process. And it's in a way a blessing in disguise, because if someone undergoes through a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, some of which have been classically recorded, it did not end up very well. It did not end up very well. I mean, Susan Segal's classic Collision with an Infinite this is all about that, right? That profound awakening just at the moment as she hopped on a bus, and what happened to her. And it's like, Gopi Krishna, there's many others who were rather the examples of how it went wrong, rather than, what it meant to really bring, and how it meant to culminate. So maybe just a concluding note, and this is, of course, potentially speculation, assumption on our part, is that widespread phenomena of heightened pranic activity that is now being witnessed with people across the cultures, right, social strata, it just can happen to anyone today, is a sign that there is, ultimately speaking, stir in consciousness per se. So that's, one would hope, how new consciousness can be brought to the world in a true visceral manner. Because then, of course, it reverberates, and everyone else, everything is being impacted by that resonance that creates.